Do you struggle to develop characters that feel real, that want real things, go for real things, do real things, behave like real people? Maybe you don't know what your characters want at all, which is a common issue that I see among beginner and more advanced writers alike. So if you feel that way, you're not alone. And if you feel that way, you have found the perfect video, because today we are going to talk about developing characters with my favorite personality tool ever, the Enneagram. Before I go any further, remember to like, subscribe, comment, all the things. I love it so much. Hitting that share button means the world to me. I also have a Patreon now, so if you want to help out the channel even more, I have a Patreon voted video coming next week that my patrons over there decided on, so it is very fun and I would love to have you. So as some of you may be aware of by now, if you've been on my channel long enough, you probably know that I am a writing coach. I offer coaching services for writers no matter what age or experience level. My dog's coming over to say hi. You want to say hi to the people? Come here. Are you having fun? Was this all that you hoped and dreamed of? Don't lick off my lipstick. As I was saying, I offer coaching services, and I'm just gonna let him do his thing and find a cute little spot to hang out. So I apologize if you're hearing dog footsteps, but I am a writing coach. I'm also, as most of you probably don't know, an Enneagram coach. So I believe the Enneagram is an awesome way for us to understand ourselves and our own inner workings and to literally change our lives. But I also think it's an amazing tool for character development. So today I want to teach you the ins and outs of the 9 personality types and how you can bring them to life in your story. Let's get into it. So the basic of each Enneagram type that you're going to get for character development in this video is their desire, their fear, and their sin. And then you're also gonna get a little bit about their growth and their stress as well. But these are the 3 really, really big things for your character, because your character is always gonna have to want something, right? Having a want that drives your character through the story is literally one of the only things that we can guarantee makes the character relatable and continues the momentum of a story in a really big way. So a want is really important, but every character is also running from something. Wanting something means you also don't want the opposite of that thing, right? So you're gonna be afraid of whatever else is out there, whatever else is the opposite of what you want. And then you have the sin. This is unique to the Enneagram. It's similar to the idea of a misbelief. So the sin is something that every single day your character has to wake up and battle. And when we get to the Enneagram 7, near the end, you'll hear what mine is and what I literally struggle with every single day. It's so rough. And if you feel called out in this video about your Enneagram type, don't worry. And if you want coaching on your Enneagram type so you can understand yourself better, let me know. So we're gonna be pulling Enneagram type descriptions right from my Enneagram coaching website. And then I will also be using the Enneagram Institute, which is another great resource on Enneagram stuff, just to tell you about the levels of health in each Enneagram type so that you can use those as you're writing your character arcs. Each Enneagram type is gonna have 9 levels of health, 1 through 3 being their healthiest, 4 through 6 being their average health, and 7 through 9 being their worst. So I'm gonna give you what a number 1 health looks like for each type, and then I'm gonna give you a 5 for each type for a character that's right in the middle, and then I'll give you a 9 for each type. So you can see at their best, right in the middle, and at their absolute worst, what your character is gonna look like. Big disclaimer before we get into this, the Enneagram Institute likes to do something that kind of bugs me, kind of rubs me the wrong way as a psych major and someone who's been in therapy for years and years and years, and that is that they like to attribute a certain mental illness or issue to the 9th level of every Enneagram type, the 9th level of health, the least optimal one. I disagree with this. I don't love that they do it. I think that I know that any person can have any mental illness, right? Any disorder can appear in any type. But the Enneagram Institute is a source that I love, and they seem to think that certain disorders correlate really highly with certain types at the worst level of health. So I'm gonna go ahead and read them out, and it's up to you how you use them. Just please use discretion. Always, if you're writing a character with a mental illness, make sure you talk to other people who experience that mental illness. Be an investigator about it, be a reporter, be a psychologist and a scientist about it. It's really hard to write something you don't know and you don't research and you don't look into. And especially with something as personal as mental illness, I really, really recommend doing your best to find people to talk to. And they may not all be these Enneagram types that we're talking about. So just be very careful. with how you use those. I almost wish they weren't there, but I'm just gonna read them and I'm gonna grin and bear it every time because the Enneagram Institute seems to think it's applicable. And that is the source that I'm sending you guys to. So we're just gonna go ahead and roll with it. With that, we will start with Enneagram 1, the Reformer. So a very, very, very brief look at the type 1 before we dive in a little further. Their desire is to be good, to have integrity, and to be balanced. And they fear being corrupt, evil, or defective. Their sin that they struggle with is anger. Principled, dutiful, and moral, the one fears being fundamentally flawed or bad. Consequently, they are motivated by their desire to be good. This often manifests in efforts to improve not only themselves, but the world around them as well. Ones struggle with the sin of anger. Because they have such high standards, they often feel let down by the world, and this disappointment leaves them vulnerable to resentment. But they're uncomfortable with displaying negative or bad emotions, so they try to hold back their irritation or even replace it with something better. For example, love or appreciation. When one represses their anger, it often leaks out of them in ways they don't recognize. They can become perfectionistic and come off as nitpicky and particular. At their worst, ones become temperamental and moody. They begin to believe they're the only ones who care about improving things. At their best, ones learn to have fun and dedicate themselves to positive change and growth, improving every space they step into and every person they talk to. Ones are great. They're the reason that we have things as good as we do, because without them, things would not be improving in our world and our lives nearly as much. So we're gonna hop over to the Enneagram Institute now, and I'm gonna give you a look at their different levels of health. So, according to the Enneagram Institute, ones at their best, their absolute best, their first level of health, become extraordinarily wise and discerning. By accepting what is, they become transcendentally realistic, knowing the best action to take in each moment. Humane, inspiring, and hopeful, the truth will be heard. The truth is a big thing for these guys. The truth and justice, and that is very similar to the Enneagram 8. So if those are buzzwords for your character, stick around till the end. All right, now a level 5 Enneagram 1 is going to be afraid of making a mistake, so everything must be consistent with their ideals. They become orderly and well organized, but impersonal, puritanical, emotionally constricted, and they rigidly keep their feelings and impulses in check. That's a big thing for these guys, is keeping their impulses in check, so they'll become a little more impulsive and fun as they go towards health. These guys are often workaholics, punctual, pedantic, and fastidious. And then our level 9, our absolute worst spot for the Enneagram to be, is when they become condemnatory towards others, punitive and cruel to rid themselves of wrongdoers. They can fall into severe depressions, nervous breakdowns, unalive attempts are likely, and they generally correspond to the obsessive, compulsive, and depressive personality disorders. And that brings us to type 2, the helper. Super brief overview of the type 2. They desire to feel loved, and they fear being unwanted, unworthy, or unloved. And their sin is pride. Warm, generous, and loving, type 2s fear being unloved or unwanted. So they're motivated by their desire to be loved. Their desire to be wanted by those around them shines through in their selflessness and service-oriented mindset. 2s struggle with the sin of pride. Because they believe it's up to them to earn the love they receive, they tend to attribute other people's emotions back to their own behavior. If someone in their circle is happy, the 2 believes it's because of them. If that person is angry or sad, the 2 will worry it is their fault. It's because of this that 2s feel the responsibility to keep those around them happy. But if they go too far in their efforts to help others, 2s can be perceived as intrusive and meddlesome. At their worst, 2s become demanding and blunt. The more unappreciated they feel, the more aggressive they will be in letting those around them know that they need more recognition. At their best, 2s are some of the kindest, most helpful people on the face of the earth. Once a 2 learns how to take care of themselves along with others, they excel in fields that embody service and love, such as healthcare or nonprofit work. So let's check out what a healthy, average, and unhealthy type 2 looks like. At their absolute best, type 2 characters are going to become deeply unselfish, humble, and altruistic. They give unconditional love to themselves and to others. They feel it is a privilege to be in the lives of others. At a level 5, right there in the middle, we have 2s who become overly intimate and intrusive. They need to be needed, so they hover, meddle, and control in the name of love. They want others to depend on them. Every time they give, they're going to expect a little bit of a return. They send double messages. They become enveloping and possessive, the codependent, self-sacrificial person who cannot do enough for others. They wear themselves out for everyone, and they create needs in others for themselves to fulfill. Then down here at the very last level of health, which I kind of hate ending on, so I think for Enneagram 3s, I'm going to go ahead and change that. But at level 9, They become able to excuse and rationalize what they do since they feel abused and victimized by others and are bitterly resentful and angry. Somatization of their aggressions results in chronic health problems as they vindicate themselves by falling apart and burdening others. This generally corresponds to the histrionic personality disorder and factitious disorder. Okay, moving on to the type 3. I thought I was recording for a good 5 minutes, and I was not. But moving on to the type 3. These guys, their basic desire is to feel valuable and worthwhile. Their basic fear is being worthless or unrecognized, because in these guys, those things are exactly the same. The amount that someone recognizes them and thinks they have achieved something successful is their amount of worth. And then their sin is deceit. Motivated, self-assured, and ambitious, the 3 fears failure. To compensate for this fear, they feed their desire to be admired. Due to their want to be recognized as successful and valuable, 3s work incredibly hard and focus on cultivating a good public image. 3s struggle with the sin of deceit. In their efforts to pursue whatever will earn them the most recognition, and therefore worth, they can easily lose sight of who they truly are. And I actually think I want to edit my website after this, because it's less about losing sight of who they are. For a really healthy 3 at level 1 or 2, it might be that. But for the average and unhealthy 3, which is most people, it takes a lifetime of work to get up to those levels of health. For most people that are 3s, it's less about losing sight of who they are and more about not even knowing, because they define themselves as toddlers, as children, like very little kids, by what they do and who people want them to be, the successful person people want them to be. 3s are often called the chameleon of the Enneagram because of their surprising ability to become what those around them want them to be. But this is a double-edged sword. By the time a 3 learns their Enneagram type, they've most likely hidden their true self so well that even they can't recognize it. It's because of this that 3s may be seen as superficial, materialistic, and even smug. Think Flynn Rider. At their worst, 3s become apathetic and tired. If they're not careful, they can lose sight of their usual goals, withdraw from their work, and fall prey to a severe form of burnout, potentially for several weeks. But at their best, 3s learn to aim for the group's successes rather than just their own. They're dynamic, action-oriented people that make the world go round. Super quick, I just want to throw this in for any Rhett and Link fans. Link is a 1 and Rhett is a 3. So if that's fun for you to know, it also is for me. And now let's look at the Enneagram Institute level of health for 3s. So at their level 1, at their best, they are self-accepting, inner-directed, and authentic, everything they seem to be. Modest and charitable, self-deprecatory humor and a fullness of heart emerge, gentle and benevolent. At the level 5, right in the middle, we have 3s that become image conscious, highly concerned with how they are perceived. They begin to package themselves according to the expectations of others and what they need to do to be successful. Pragmatic and efficient. Efficiency is a big thing for 3s, a big strength. But also premeditated, losing touch with their own feelings beneath a smooth facade. Problems with intimacy, credibility, and phoniness emerge. And then we have our level 9 3s. Become vindictive, attempting to ruin others' happiness. Relentless, obsessive about destroying whatever reminds them of their own shortcomings and failures. Psychopathic behavior generally corresponds to the narcissistic personality disorder. And with that, we're jumping to 4s. Oh dang, I said I was gonna switch the order of health. I'm gonna do that because I don't like ending on such a sad note, because I'm a 7 and we'll get there. Type 4s are the individualist. Super quick overview. These guys desire to find themselves and have significance and basically to create an identity. They fear that they have no identity or personal significance, and their sin is envy. Romantic, intuitive, and self-aware, Enneagram 4s fear having no identity or significance, so they're highly motivated by their desire to find or create themselves. You can find a 4 expressing themselves in all kinds of creative ways, such as wearing unique outfits, making individualistic art, or acting particularly eccentric, and we love them for it. Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter's a 4. I'm sorry I didn't give examples for 1 and 2, but I'm planning to do videos going through examples of each type for the rest of the year, so we'll get there. But I'm just saying what comes off the dome, which is Mad Hatter, okay? Look at that guy, he's a 4. Sorry, I get really passionate about the Mad Hatter apparently. 4s struggle with the sin of envy. They're experts at picking up on what others have that they themselves are missing. They often experience life from the outside looking in, wanting to connect with others, but feeling too flawed to do so. To cope with the constant feeling that they're different from the people around them, 4s emphasize what is special about themselves. This coping mechanism helps them focus on what they like about themselves while also covering up or distracting from the parts of themselves they deeply dislike. At their worst, 4s become people-focused, but not in the best way. They can become clingy, jealous, and intensely focused on gaining others' approval. At their best, 4s cultivate a strong self-discipline that allows them to rise above the push and pull of their emotions and live a more stable life. For the type 4, our worst level of health is going to be obviously level 9, which looks like this. Despairing, feel hopeless and become self-destructive, possibly abusing alcohol or drugs to escape. In the extreme, emotional breakdown or unalive is likely. Generally corresponds to the avoidant, depressive, and narcissistic personality disorders. Poor 4s, they're just labeled with like 3,000 disorders. Sorry guys, I really don't like that the Enneagram Institute does that. I hope my stance has been made known. Anyways, at level 5, to stay in touch with their feelings, they interiorize everything. Interiorize? Internalize? Interiorize is not a word. Unless it is, then I'm a writer who doesn't know words. They take everything personally, but become self-absorbed and introverted, moody and hypersensitive, shy and self-conscious, unable to be spontaneous or get out of themselves. They stay withdrawn to protect their self-image and to buy time to sort out feelings. And then we have them at their best, which is profoundly creative, expressing the personal and the universal, possibly in a work of art. Inspired, self-renewing, and regenerating, able to transform all of their experiences into something valuable, self-creative. All right, type 5, the investigator. These guys desire to be capable and competent through knowledge, and they fear being useless, helpless, or incapable, which typically means they fear not having enough knowledge. And then they struggle with the sin of avarice, which is similar to greed, but a little bit different because greed is about wanting other people's things, and avarice is about hoarding your own things and not letting anybody else access your things, such as your energy, your emotions, your time, your space, all that stuff. That all applies to 5s. Private, analytical, and curious. Type 5s fear being helpless and incapable. Because of this, they're motivated by their desire to expand their knowledge and capability. You'll see this desire in their never-ending search for understanding, their propensity for learning, and their thoughtfulness in approaching life. 5s struggle with the sin of avarice, which is similar to greed, but rather than wanting what others have, 5s hoard what they have. They tend to be introverts and lone wolves because they hold their time, energy, and emotional connection so close to the vest. In other words, they hoard their resources. 5s naturally think that if they give away these things, they won't have enough left for themselves and they'll be left depleted and exhausted. This can lead to them detaching from the world and their personal relationships in a severe way. At their worst, 5s become disorganized and scatterbrained. Solving problems becomes much harder, and they take action much faster than usual to distract from what they're struggling with rather than face it. At their best, 5s dive deeply into knowledge that's applicable and helpful. They become more assertive, more in touch with their bodies, and more grounded in the world and their relationships. Going into the levels of health, your average Enneagram 5 character is going to be increasingly detached as they become involved with complicated ideas or imaginary worlds. They become preoccupied with their visions and interpretations rather than reality. They're fascinated by offbeat, esoteric subjects, even those involving dark and disturbing elements, sometimes especially those involving dark and disturbing elements. They are detached from the practical world, a disembodied mind, although high-strung and intense. At level 9, your 5s that are going towards villainy, right? Towards a dark, negative arc. Seeking oblivion, they may commit unalive or have a psychotic break with reality. Deranged, explosively self-destructive, with schizophrenic overtones, generally corresponds to the schizoid avoidant and schizotypal personality disorders. Then at their best, your level 5 heroes who are going on a beautiful positive arc for their journey, they become visionaries, broadly comprehending the world while penetrating it profoundly. What a way to say that. Open-minded, they take things in whole in their true context, make pioneering discoveries, and find entirely new ways of doing and perceiving things. That brings us to the 6, the loyalist. These guys desire security and support. They fear being without support and guidance. Type 6s are often said to fear fear. They fear being afraid, they fear danger, and they struggle with the sin of fear. Committed, hardworking, and trustworthy, Type 6s fear danger and being afraid. To address their fear, their biggest desire is to create security and stability in their lives. To make this desire a reality, 6s search for authority figures they can trust, surround themselves with supportive people. These guys are pack animals. If I had to describe Type 6s in 2 words, it would be pack animals. And keep their sights on the possible dangers life could bring. Oh, and like emergency preppers is another good 2 words for the Type 6. 6s struggle with the sin of fear. They're afraid of being afraid, being in danger, or being insecure and unsupported. So they try to predict the scary or dangerous things that will happen, because if they're predicted, they can be prepared for. But because sixes are in the center of the thinking or head triad, there are a ton of triads in the Enneagram that we will not be discussing in this video, but maybe one day. They're more easily disconnected from their own logical, analytical power, and they can lose the ability to test whether their fearful thoughts are coming from a logical, factual place. This leads to the classic overthinking and disaster planning stereotype of the six. At their worst, sixes work themselves to exhaustion. They become more self-focused, aggressive, and fixated on material success. At their best, on the other hand, sixes are able to calm their anxieties, build their self-confidence, and manage life from a place of inner harmony and stability. Your average type 6 character right in the middle is going to resist having more demands made on them by reacting against others passive-aggressively. They become evasive, indecisive, cautious, procrastinating, and ambivalent. They're highly reactive, anxious, and negative, giving contradictory mixed signals. Internal confusion makes them react unpredictably. Going towards villainy, towards a negative arc, towards self-destruction, whatever it is. These guys are hysterical and seeking to escape punishment become self-destructive and unalive-able. Alcoholism, drug overdoses, self-abasing behavior generally corresponds to the passive-aggressive and paranoid personality disorders. At their absolute best, these guys are going to become self-affirming, trusting of self and others, independent yet symbiotically interdependent and cooperative as an equal. Their belief in self leads to true courage, positive thinking, leadership, and rich self-expression. I'm standing kind of close to the door, and this is the first time I filmed in this location. So I think that my puppy thinks I'm gonna leave the room. And he always has to follow me. I'm not going anywhere, dude. Okay, now we have reached type 7s, which is me. And if you know the Enneagram, you're probably thinking, no shit. Dude, okay, lay down somewhere, my friend. These guys desire to be satisfied and content and to have their needs fulfilled. They fear being deprived and in pain. And I would add to those that we really desire freedom and we fear being trapped. And our sin is gluttony. Playful, spontaneous, and adventurous. Type 7s fear being trapped in emotional pain, and deep down, they desire satisfaction and contentment. It's because of their core fear and desire that they run from things that could potentially keep them stuck and strive to keep themselves entertained and happy. Us 7s are on a never-ending search for fun. 7s struggle with the sin of gluttony. We often associate this with wanting food in excess, but for the 7, it translates to wanting everything in excess. Fun, entertainment, parties, adventures, they can't get enough. On the outside, this can look like intense FOMO and a fear of commitment, but on the inside, it stems from a deep feeling of emptiness. 7s are constantly trying to fill themselves up with happiness because they believe it only exists outside of them. They truly don't know how to cultivate joy internally. At their worst, 7s become scattered, impatient, and critical. They lose their fun-loving spirit and turn instead to perfectionism and responsibility. At their best, 7s are able to practice stillness, focus, and gratitude. They become more grounded and are able to find satisfaction in what they have. Your middle-of-the-road type 7 character is going to be unable to discriminate what they really need. They're going to become hyperactive. They're going to be unable to say no to themselves. They're going to throw themselves into constant activity. They become uninhibited, doing and saying whatever comes to mind. Storytelling, flamboyant exaggerations, witty wisecracking, performing. Fear being bored, in perpetual motion, but do too many things, many ideas, but little follow through. The 7s that are going to be bad guys or are having a really hard time in their life. Finally, their energy and health is completely spent. They become claustrophobic and panic-stricken, often give up on themselves and life. Deep depression and despair, self-destructive overdoses, impulsive unalive, generally corresponds to bipolar disorder and histrionic personality disorder. 7s at level 1 health assimilate their experiences in depth, making them deeply grateful and appreciative for what they have. They become awed by the simple wonders of life, joyous and ecstatic intimations of spiritual reality and of the boundless goodness of life. And that brings us to 8, the Challenger. 8s have a special spot in my heart because I thought I was an 8 for a really, really long time, and I have a very strong 8 wing. And wings are another way that you can develop your characters more with the Enneagram, so feel free to look into that. But that will make this video way too long because I will talk about the Enneagram all day if you let me. So we're gonna go into 8s, the Challengers. These guys desire to protect themselves and be in control of their own life, and they fear being harmed or controlled by others. Their sin is lust, but in more of an intense way. of like, oh, if I like that exercise, I want to do it every day this week and no other exercises. Or, oh, if I like eating that meal, I'm going to have it 3 times today and I'm not going to have any other meals. Assertive, confident, and protective. Type 8s fear being manipulated and harmed, so it makes sense that they desire independence and control. The core of the 8 manifests in their struggle to be vulnerable, their direct and fearless approach to conflict, and the way they take charge of their surroundings, whether it be their life, their relationships, or just the situation they're in. 8s struggle with the sin of lust. In Enneagram terms, lust equals intensity. 8s search for intensity in everything they do. If they like a food, they'll want 5 plates of it. If a certain sport gets their heart rate going, they'll want to play it until they drop. If they find a hobby they enjoy, they'll want to center their lives around it as much as they can. In its most intense, unhealthy levels, the 8's lust can manifest in a desire to control and own everything and everyone around them. At their worst, 8s are withdrawn, cold, and hypervigilant. They disconnect with their emotions and become secretive, worrying that if they let anyone in, they will be betrayed. At their best, 8s become compassionate, protective, and trusting. They learn to accept other viewpoints, grow more comfortable with patience and understanding, and channel their intensity and passion into protecting those who need protecting. Your average 8 character is going to begin to dominate their environment, including others. They want to feel that others are behind them, supporting their efforts. They become swaggering, boastful, forceful, and expansive. The boss, whose word is law. Proud and egocentric, they will want to impose their will and vision on everything, not seeing others as equals or treating them with respect. Which is interesting because 8s always demand respect. They think that respect isn't something they have to earn, it should just be something they already have from you. But they struggle to sometimes respect others. At level 9 health, if the 8 gets in danger, they may brutally destroy everything that has not conformed to their will, rather than surrender to anyone else. Vengeful, barbaric, murderous. Sociopathic tendencies generally corresponds to the antisocial personality disorder. Then, at their best, over here at 1, they become self-restrained and magnanimous, merciful and forbearing, mastering self through their self-surrender to a higher authority, courageous, willing to put self in serious jeopardy to achieve their vision and have a lasting influence, may achieve true heroism and historical greatness. You know who I think is a level 1 8? Just saying. Everyone likes to be scared of 8s, especially female 8s. You guys, 8s are a very, very, very cool type. Don't be afraid to put an 8 in your story. Just because there's an 8 in your story doesn't mean they have to be starting bar fights all the time. And maybe I'm just talking about misconceptions I've run across as someone who identified as an 8 for a minute and is a woman. But people tend to have this very negative view of 8s that doesn't have to be true. Most of the time is not true. Finally, we'll finish it off with the 9. I'm sorry that you guys are always last, 9s. I know you're probably used to it, and because I know who you are, you're probably like, no, it's fine, it doesn't bug me, but I'm sorry. These guys desire to have inner stability and inner peace of mind. They fear loss, separation, and conflict, and their sin is sloth. Accepting, stable, and relaxed. 9s fear being in conflict and being separated from people due to conflict. Because of this, they desire inner peace. This shows in their easygoing, adaptable nature, their tendency to merge with those around them, and their difficulty with identifying their goals and desires. A really good way I've heard 9s described is like vanilla ice cream. Like if you eat vanilla ice cream, it has a flavor, it tastes good, and it's its own thing. But then you mix it with some chocolate and suddenly it starts tasting like chocolate and seeming a little bit like chocolate. And if you put enough chocolate in there, you're like, where's the vanilla? And 9s are really under the radar in this way, and they kind of assimilate and blend in to people around them, but not in the way that a 3 does, and that the 3 is like, oh, you like that thing? I do too. Look how good I am at it. Like, pay attention to me, recognize me. 9s are just like, oh yeah, I definitely like that thing. That's super cool. Me too. Even though they might not even know what the thing is, just because they don't want you to say, oh, if you don't like that thing, then we're gonna have a problem. That's their worst fear. 9s struggle with the sin of sloth. Sloth helps them believe they're surrounded by a more peaceful world than they are because they use it to dampen their emotions, especially their anger, and forget the things they want that may cause disagreement or disharmony. They often find themselves wanting what those around them want or disliking what those around them dislike because of their subconscious ability to merge with others. Enneagram 9s fall asleep to who they truly are, their passions, their needs, their abilities, and ultimately their worth. At their worst, nines become anxious, insecure, and self-sabotaging. They catastrophize, lose confidence in their actions, neglect important issues, and distrust their thoughts and needs. At their best, nines are ambitious, passionate, and driven. When they realize their voice and presence matters, they find it easier to focus on their goals and dreams and work toward what they want to achieve and who they want to be. Middle of the road Enneagram 9 characters are active but disengaged, unreflective, and inattentive. They don't want to be affected, so they become unresponsive and complacent, walking away from problems and sweeping them under the rug. Thinking becomes hazy and ruminative, mostly comforting fantasies as they begin to tune out reality, becoming oblivious, emotionally indolent, unwillingness to exert self or to focus on problems, and ultimately they become indifferent. As Enneagram 9s go towards that last level of health, they finally become severely disoriented and catatonic, abandoning themselves, turning into shattered shells. Multiple personalities possible. Generally corresponds to the schizoid and dependent personality disorders. And then over here, at 1, they become self-possessed, feeling autonomous and fulfilled. They have great equanimity and contentment because they're present to themselves. Paradoxically, they become at one with themselves and thus are able to form more profound relationships, intensely alive, fully connected to self and others. And that is the Enneagram, my friends. Go use it to develop your characters. It is a crazy useful tool. I think that I will be putting out one video a month highlighting some characters from each category, and I might do it out of order. I might have Google randomly generate the orders because I do feel bad that 9s are always last. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, all the things. Again, the Patreon QR is right here. Links are also in the description for everything. Go buy my book. Do all the things. I appreciate you being here. I will see you in the next one. Happy trails.